Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to Wednesday. Or welcome to Wednesday for the first time. Today's day 3 of our Peak Performance Challenge, and we've had 2 fantastic days so far. Welcome to everybody in Facebook Live. Nice to see you out there. Come into the Zoom room. It's warmer in here. It's nice, and you can put stuff in the chat. Please put in the chat where you're coming from, and if you're joining us for the first day, let us know too. All of the recordings for these sessions are available on the Invested Musician Facebook group, I Am Community, and if you have subscribed to this project, you'll get the links to the recordings of the sessions as well, so you can review these, because there's quite a lot of content. So I'd encourage you to sort of go backwards and forwards and get the information that you need. The first couple of days we focused on technique. Today it's all about music. So this is what we've sort of covered in the last 2 days. We started off on Monday talking about simple, natural, and repeatable with our foundation. And for me, this is something that we really need to make sure that we keep in mind as we're building our technique. But also, you know, as things get more difficult, we need to keep coming back to this. Am I putting in the things that are going to work best under pressure as I continue to improve and as I continue to play more difficult things? And then the building blocks. As a brass player or a wind player, we talk about air a lot. So air is the foundation for me of everything that I'm doing in my playing. And then making sure that that's connecting with my setup, with my lips, the vibrating surface. If you're a wind player, you know, the reeds. With the flute, it's going to be the mouthpiece. And then how the tongue is interacting with all of that. So these 3 main elements of sound production that we need to make sure that we're aware of, and that we're if we run into problems, that we're able to separate these 3 things and isolate one of them to make sure that we're putting the right ingredients in place. For most of us, the tongue is the thing that creates most of the issues. For me, it's almost always the tongue. But the issue that it generally creates, the problem that it generally creates, is it stops the use of our air. So we want to go back and establish things from the beginning, making sure that our air is set up really well and that the tongue is not altering how we actually move that airstream. So 5 ways of success we talked about yesterday in the session, and this is a really good way to think about preparing any piece, any excerpt for an audition. Can you play it 5 different ways, starting from way too little, to the Goldilocks area of just right, too much, way too much. If you've got a piece that you can't play those 5 ways, then the chances are that when you're under pressure, it's going to suffer. It's going to be a little unstable. And also, what the 5 ways does is it protects us against conductors and panels saying, or committees saying, oh, can you play that softer? Can you play that faster? Can you play that slower? Can you play that with shorter articulation? If we play in performance our Goldilocks way of doing things, the way that we would prefer, then we've got room either side with all of these elements to be able to expand to those requests. And then we talked about tying it all together. So this to me is, it's a good one for us to remember. Establish the mechanism away from the instrument, execute it into the instrument, execute those feelings, execute the movement of the air, the cutting of the tongue, the good stability. Put that into the instrument in a really, really simple way with simple exercises. Expand it through advanced exercises or even slightly more difficult exercises, so that we're adding to the building blocks, we're adding movement and coordination, and then applying those skills to studies, to etudes, to pieces, to put a little bit more pressure, a little bit more difficulty on the mechanism, and that's going to help it grow. Remembering, if we just practice the same thing at the same tempo, at the same dynamic, with the same rhythm every time, it's going to get worse. We talked about this on the first day. We are either getting better or we're getting worse. So if we're just doing the same thing every day, it's not improving. So therefore, it's got to be getting worse, right? So we want to find a way where we're struggling a little bit. We're placing a challenge on our brain, something that's slightly too difficult. Maybe not too difficult, but just it's creating a little bit of a need for us to work a little harder. Then we're going to be expanding that skill and continue to improve. And the last one is deliver that skill set into pieces, into excerpts. All right, we got some really good stuff in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to jump on to what Joanna's question is. You asked to explain shortly how to practice technical methods like rhythm, range, and endurance by this too little, too many ways of practice. Okay, so range, when we're talking about an excerpt, for example, what I would tend to do, and as a horn player we have to do this a lot, is transposition. We have to transpose all the time. I'm playing at the moment. We're playing Fidelio this week, Beethoven's only opera. If anyone in the LA area, I encourage you to come and see this. It's going to be an amazing performance. We actually have an incredible cast of singers, but in addition to that, we have a deaf cast. So a deaf acting cast, so that the entire production is being acted out by sign, people signing, and they're acting out all of the scenes as well as the singers. So it's a very immersive experience, and the concept behind it is that people are able to experience what it would be like to see a performance, or to experience a performance if they were not able to hear. And obviously the motivation being Beethoven, when he wrote it, he couldn't hear. So going back to transposition, so in terms of range, if we've got a piece that goes into the upper register, I would look at playing it, and again, we don't need to go through this in a fast way, just in a way that's manageable, but I would take it up a semitone, and then I would take it up another semitone, and then up another semitone, until that I've expanded that range to, as far beyond what I would consider way too much. And then when I come back to the regular pitch, it would feel pretty comfortable. Likewise, if I've got a low excerpt, I would take it considerably lower and feel what that is like, to build that strength, to build that stability. And also remembering that obviously playing it in different keys is going to also make things more difficult. It's going to help us to hear things clearer, to build the relationship of the intervals even more strongly. One idea to build range, as well as creating musicality, that a lot of teachers use is for brass players, the Koprash books are very good etudes. Playing them down an octave or up an octave, or in various forms of transposition, is really going to help to build the execution that are in those particular studies. Rhythm. So rhythm is one that, in order to, particularly if we've got like technical things, and this works really well for flute, clarinet, oboe, definitely for brass, is to change the rhythm of whatever we're playing. So if I'm playing Till Eulenspiegel, so that's the basic rhythm, I would look at finding any way to change the rhythm so it feels a little more difficult. Now, just by simply doing that, I feel a little awkward. It's not right in the comfort zone for me, because it's creating a little bit more difficulty. So what I want to do is work on that until that starts to feel comfortable. When that starts to feel comfortable, I want to move on to a different rhythm. So I want to mix up my rhythms and expand the rhythms, expand the speed of the rhythms using different meters. And then, of course, always thinking of subdividing. So if we can subdivide within, a good example of that for horn players is Shostakovich fifth, the low tutti, subdividing that to make sure that the rhythm is nice and stable, and also Tchaikovsky 5 solo, subdividing. That's really going to help the rhythm, and then obviously when we've got this accelerando section in there, I want to push that accelerando too far, way too far, and then also have it so that there's no accelerando, and feel what those differences are, and feel it's going to really inform me making a decision as to what is the best musical outcome that I can make, and we're going to get to that in a minute. Endurance, endurance is one of those that I would, and a lot of people had that in the chat, in the feedback, that endurance was an issue. What I would think about with endurance, the first thing, most people think, and when I was a student, I thought, okay, I just need to play more, and then I'm going to get better endurance. Anyone experience that? Feel as though you just play a lot more, and then you're going to have much better endurance. Yeah, okay, that's part of it. That's good. Because I mean, if you left the horn in the case, or if you left the flute in the case, or the instrument, whatever instrument you play in the case, you're not going to get better endurance that way, right? So you do actually have to play it. Sorry for those of you who came to this session to think that I was just going to be able to tell you the magic trick for having good endurance. Not going to happen. So yes, we need to practice, but what is more important is efficiency of your mechanism, which is why we started, day one with the building blocks and the foundation. The more efficient we are, the more we are going to be able to play for longer, the more that we're going to have this endurance. And remembering that endurance goes two ways. We have what I would think as long-term endurance. So, can I get through an entire Verdi opera? Or can I get through a Mahler symphony? Or can I get through 3 hours of practice in a day? And then the short-term endurance of, can I get through, a major study without feeling really too fatigued, or without my technique suffering. Now, for me, the long-term endurance has to be there in order for the short-term endurance to work. So I can't get through a concerto unless I can, really put in 3 hours a day of solid practice, because they're different sort of types of endurance, but I need that. If you think of it as aerobic and anaerobic, you need the aerobic capacity to be able to have the anaerobic to work. But I would be asking my question: if my endurance is suffering, is it because I'm not practicing enough, or is it because I'm actually not efficient enough with my mechanism? So I want to firstly ask that question: am I being efficient? And go back to simple, natural, and repeatable. And these building blocks, and is my air set up well? Is my embouchure, is my setup in my face nice and organized, or is for string players, are both hands in the right sort of setup for your playing? And then, for me, is my articulation, is my tongue doing the right things? Once those things are set up efficiently, then I'm going to actually have better endurance automatically, and I can start extending that. But as we get tired, what tends to happen is we throw out that stuff and we just sort of hope that it's going to work. So we need to keep reminding ourselves to come back to these fundamentals. Doug Hall, you have your hand up. Good morning.
Good morning. So what I found after playing inside with the practice mute and then going back to the orchestra is the energy is, and then we were outside, it's much higher. So if you can, just like getting ready for auditions, do a little practice outside or in a very big room so that you can feel the amount of energy that it takes to play again. That's the thing that I run into with endurance. And it did take like 2 weeks to solidly get back to our performance. So you do have to consider that also. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. You're awesome.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Terrific. Yeah. Really good advice. And I think one thing to couple with that is often most of us practice in small spaces. Mm-hmm. That's pretty normal. So so the mindset of what Doug is mentioning, if you can imagine that you are playing in a concert hall, if you can think of always producing sound with that mindset, that you're in a concert hall or you're playing outside at the Shell in San Diego where Doug plays, or at the Hollywood Bowl, or at Ravinia Festival, or at Tanglewood, if we can have this mindset of sound production, that we're always playing for that space rather than the actual space that we're in and reacting to that, it's going to help us to always make sure that we're putting in these good ingredients with the solid foundation. Okay, so yeah, in terms of strings, so rhythm, I think the advantage of strings is you guys have got so many notes to play, and I think with all of these technical etudes that happen, you see this in the Mozart and Beethoven excerpts for violin and viola, cello. Altering the rhythm for me is one of the best ways to get your hands to coordinate in an efficient way. So if you've got a passage of straight 30-second notes, putting in a dotted rhythm, putting in a rhythm that's in 6/8 instead of 2, and altering that rhythm, and also altering the articulation within that rhythm. So if one section is just simply slurred, or if it's simply as it comes, change the bow stroke, change the actual articulation, slur 2 and articulate 1. So that and you'll hit upon one that feels really awkward, even though it's the same material. You'll find it'll like, oh, that doesn't feel comfortable. That little pain point is where you really start learning, and where you really start to dig into the development of this stability, so that when you get into under pressure, it's going to be automatic. I have an excerpt in my repertoire that comes up sadly a lot for us, is the Dvorak 9. The end of Dvorak 9, there's a horn duet, and it requires me as a horn player, I only have to use 3 fingers, and it's not very often, so it's pretty easy. But that excerpt for me, I have to practice in about 5 different rhythms, in 5 different articulations, at a whole bunch of speeds, to be able to play that in the concert. Because if I have to think, it's a nightmare. And the lick goes, and this is right on the spot. I've not practiced this in 12 months, so good luck, Andrew. So that for me is exceptionally challenging when I'm under pressure. So I need to practice it in a lot of different ways and a lot of different tempos. And remembering, going back to what we said yesterday, your brain will only recall under pressure what it practices the most. So we don't need to practice super fast. What we need to practice is making sure that we're understanding what we're doing and placing a little bit more pressure, a little bit more difficulty each repetition. And in terms of range, yeah, I mean, for violin, obviously different positions, anything that's going to make it more, or viola, cello, whatever string instrument you're playing. And endurance, the other thing is, can you play through a really tricky excerpt twice? That would be the other question that I would ask. Back to back. That's going to help with endurance. We've got a whole bunch of ideas on the Invested Musician YouTube channel as well. There's also last year's challenge that covers some of these things and expands some of the technical stuff. And just remember, if you want to check out more about Invested Musician, look at the website www.investedmusician.com. We've got a lot of helpful resources there. We are running a summer program from the beginning of June. We would love to chat to you about how we can help. Tailor a program for you over the summer to get you ready for auditions that are coming in the fall. Whether it's performance that you've got coming up, whether it's recitals, whether it's college auditions, or if it's just simply that you just want to improve your playing and you want to get your business and time organized a bit better, we can help with that. We've had people ranging from the ages of 16 to 65 in our program at all variety of levels, and it's a very individualized program. Very small group. We want to keep the group small so that we can make sure that we work directly with people and really be in touch with how we can help you to improve your career and your playing. All right, let's have a look at. Okay, so yesterday's assignment. Whoops. Yesterday's assignment. Who did yesterday's assignment? Show of hands. Thank you for all those people who put in the videos up in the Facebook group, and also for those of you who sent us videos. Chicago, I got your permission this morning. I'm going to look at that this afternoon for your video. So thank you for sending that. A lot of fantastic playing. Really, really great. Put in the chat, or maybe share with us if you want to put your hand up and have a chat, how you feel as though you've improved over the last couple of days. And what is the thing that has really helped that improvement? Which of these tools did you find the most helpful? And what was, and how did you implement that? So for last night or for yesterday, identifying 3 technical elements in your challenging excerpt or piece, and then practicing the element using the 5 ways method of way too little, just right, too much, way too much. Whack it in the chat. Let us know. Or raise your hand. Or just open your mic and just start talking. If you, whichever you prefer. Okay, great.
Andrew?
Yes.
I had a comment, since you said we could just start talking.
Yeah.
As a brass player, I've always been taught elements of the Arnold Jacobs method and done my best to apply them. And I've always really struggled to do so because of some of the areas of that you outlined yesterday with, like, it could be air, it could be tongue, it could be setup. And from what we did, since this course began with those elements, I've found my ability to apply the Jacobs method is so much better. And so practice feels much more creative. And I feel like there's other methods that I'm doing successfully because of these elements all starting to come together in a more efficient way. So it's really like all my training is like come full circle because of this process, which sort of seems to isolate different areas. So it's great. Thank you.
Terrific. Yeah, great. Ganesh, thank you. Yeah, it's I used to feel as though the Jacobs method was the way to go when I was a student, and then I went the opposite direction of that for me, and I thought, well, hang on, this is all a little bit, it's great if you're the principal tutor of the Chicago Symphony to think just all I need to do is think about it and it's going to happen. So this is where it got me thinking that, yeah, we need the building blocks to be able to put ourselves in a position where we can apply this stuff, where we can, focus on the singing. And that's why what we're talking about today, when I eventually get to it, what we're talking about today is making these musical connections. And then how to bring that together with the technical. Because the reality is, and there is a, there's a video out there that's taught, maybe I forget who was telling me the story, that it was a Roger Bobo class where he asked a student holding a tray of water to just walk across the room and not drop the water, and then next time focus on every step that they took across the room. And of course they've stumbled and spilt the water, and the takeaway from this was like, we don't need to think about walking to be able to, carry a tray of glasses across the room. Yes, that's true, but if we take it the opposite direction, if I said as a horn player, put your mouthpiece in your ear and make the most beautiful sound you can, it's no matter what you do, it's not going to work, right? So we need to have these this basic fundamentals and understand how to grow them in our playing before we can actually focus on the big picture stuff of like, how do we express that? We need the tools to be able to actually express what we want musically. But yeah, great. I'm glad it's helping. Any other comments? Okay, great. Every missed note comes from concentration. Great, we're going to talk about concentration and focus tomorrow. Breathing has helped. Fantastic. Really good improvement in the last few days. I've been focusing on these areas: set up, tongue, air, also movement. Doing these away and then with the trumpet has been a game changer. Great, thanks, Ganesh. Awesome. Crack notes on the bottom of the stave. Yeah, so what's interesting, there was something that in Tim Jones' warm-up session a few weeks ago, and if you haven't seen that, check it out. It will be on YouTube, and if you've signed up to the warm-ups, you will receive the link. Tim talked about making sure, just checking in that your setup is in the right position for each part of the range. So what we tend to do is, we start on a certain point with our setup, and then we just sort of like stick with that and until we sort of reach a break point, and then we jump over it. So if you're thinking of more gradual movement through the range, and just be aware as you're traveling that the balance on your setup is consistent throughout, and that you're thinking of making this transition to each note rather than being anchored in a certain point with your setup. If we can focus on that, I think we're going to find it's going to be much easier to get through the range. It was something that I really enjoyed in Tim's session. I found it very, very helpful. Likewise, if we have large shifts in our technique, just making sure that we're prepared for those shifts. We're in a position where that we're feeling as though we know where we're moving to, rather than just reaching the point where we need to make the shift and making a huge jump. And this applies for strings as well as brass or winds. Okay. What do we got next? Oh, so today's freeing you're in a conductor. All right, awesome. So let's move on to the music side. Character. One of the things that we hear in auditions all the time is that people play the instrument very well, but it's very difficult to determine whether they're playing Beethoven, Brahms, Shostakovich, Strauss, or Mahler in an audition, other than the fact that they're playing the notes of that composer. So we want to make sure that when we're preparing our excerpt this week, that we're thinking about what is the character that we want to put in place. I tried to look through the internet. I found a whole bunch of pictures of Till Eulenspiegel that I was going to put up here, but I thought this graphic was a little bit more interesting. So if you can think of like, what is the character, think about your excerpt and maybe put it in the chat. What is your cartoon character or your image or your movie character for your particular piece? Have a think about it. To Eulenspiegel is pretty easy. Heldenleben is a different one. If you're thinking of maybe a Mozart concerto, what is that image that pops into the front of your mind? If you can't think of one, don't worry, because we're going to cover that too. So how do we get to this character? If we can't find a character, and there are many times where I'll get to a piece and I'm just like, I'm not feeling it. I don't really get the character. So what do I do? Well, I find a couple of recordings. 3 is normally a good number. Gives us a good sort of outline. And I listen to the recording. The first thing I do is just listen to them and get an understanding of how the piece goes. And I see, the more I listen to them, the more that I get an emotional reaction to them. And it starts to create some imagery. But what will also then really help is, once I've listened to them, once I understand the piece, once I know how it goes, then I start asking my question, what do I like about this performance? And what don't I like about this performance? Now I'm starting to not only develop my own character or feel the character, because I'm developing an opinion about the piece and I'm developing an opinion about the performance, but I'm starting to develop my own idea about how I want to shape this piece, how I want it to go, and what's my ideal performance. the key in auditions and the key with conductors, and Gustavo's told me this too. When I first joined the orchestra, I used to run up to him every 5 minutes and say, Gustavo, I've been playing this solo. Are you happy with it? And eventually, after like a few weeks, he's like, look, because he didn't want to talk to me every day. He's got plenty of people to talk to him. He said, look, your job is to come to me with your opinion of how you want this piece to go. If it's a really good opinion and I don't agree with it, it's fine. I'll let you go with it. If you don't have an opinion, it's not going to help me, because now I'm going to have to teach you how to play the piece. I'm going to have to give you my idea. If I really hate your idea, don't worry, I'll let you know. And I'll get you to change it. But your job is to come with an idea, with an opinion, and convince me that it's a pretty good one. And this is why he's such a good conductor and why he's such a good music director, is that he lets the musicians express what they want. He lets the soloists actually have a voice. And if they don't have a voice, then he'll step in. But it's my job to have an opinion, and it's the same thing on a panel. Is the panel generally doesn't care, the audience doesn't really care what your opinion is. They don't come to the concert to listen to their opinion. They come to the concert to hear what you've got to say. So it's really important, listen to the 3 recordings and start working out if you like it or not. Just because it's the Berlin Phil doesn't necessarily mean that you like it. And that's totally fine. Because we all know that the version you're going to like is laphil. Yeah. But it's also listen to laphil recordings and figure out what you don't like from there too. So once we've created this, you've listened to the 3 recordings and you determine what your opinion is, then you're in good shape. Then you can actually, oops, can everyone see that? You can see what I'm doing? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, then you have something to work from, and then you can craft it from there. But keep listening, and also I would encourage, and I say this to a lot of my students, is that even if you've got the recording on while you're not doing anything, even if it's in the car, even if while you're cooking, put on a recording and let it sort of by osmosis wash into you. The more that you hear it, the more it's going to get embedded in there, and the better you're going to be able to sing it, and the better you're going to be able to have an opinion. So the other suggestion I have is, if you don't really have a strong opinion about it, the piece that you're playing or the excerpt that you're preparing, pick one of these recordings and copy it. Copy what they're doing. And really try and make sure you do exactly what's on that recording. Pretty quickly, you'll come back to what you like and what you don't like of that version, the more that you play it in that way. But it's better to have a clear idea. This is why, even if you don't have your own opinion, copying someone else's will give you a clear idea. Oh, this is exactly how that goes. This is how I'm going to play it. That's a better way of going into, rather than just playing it in a random way and hoping that people like it. And we hear this a lot in auditions. It's like they're playing for a way that, oh, I hope the panel likes this. I hope I'm not offending anybody. Instead of like, no, I'm going to play Stefan Dor's version today. This is how it goes. And this is the most convincing Stefan Dor impersonation that I can do. Then it's going to still be impressive. It might not be exactly what you want, but it's going to have that opinion. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. I wanted to really quickly just chat about the language of composers, and just something for us to keep in mind. Composers have a very limited amount of things they can tell us on a page. Right? They've got dynamics, they've got tempo, they've got rhythm, they've got articulation, and they've got, obviously the notes that they can write in. But it's very difficult for them to explain to us exactly what they want in terms of expression, in terms of the length of those notes. If you see a staccato over the top of a note, what do we think? Oh, short. Is it always short? Do they always want it to be the same length? I doubt that every staccato that Beethoven wrote, he wanted the same length. But he had a limited amount of things that he could do, and he couldn't scribble on the page exactly like, I want it to sound like this. You can't explain it. So when you're looking at your excerpts or pieces, try and interpret what the language that the composer is using. So for me, a lot of the time you see staccato, and Till Eulenspiegel, we keep coming back to that one because one, I can almost play it, and two, it shows a lot of stuff. But there's a lot of staccato markings in Till Eulenspiegel. Now, does that mean that I play it? That's staccato. Or what length is it? If we have the character of the piece, if we think about what the language of the composer is, we're going to get closer to understanding what he wants. So the character obviously is this harlequin, court jester sort of character, cheeky, sneaky, right? So how does that influence what staccato is? So for me, the descending arpeggio, which is marked staccato, in a crescendo and getting faster, is just to indicate that he wants you to keep it clear and clean, right? Precise with the articulation. So to me, that's a different articulation than if I were to play, Beethoven 6. So the staccato in those ones is a little bit more bouncy because they're repeated notes, but we're also going for a totally different character. So just have a think about when you look at the music, why do they write accents? What does the accent mean? Does it mean you just whack the front of the note? So for me in Till Eulenspiegel, there are two accents in the duplet part. What that means to me is he's indicating that he wants the phrase to move forward and become more agitated and have more energy. So the accents indicate energy and urgency and direction rather than which actually stop the phrase. So I think of these accents as moving the phrase forward, exaggerating the tempo, energizing the phrase. So again, with all of these things, if we think of interpreting this language, we're going to come to our opinion. And our opinion is what is going to be the strongest thing that's going to come across to the audience. It doesn't have to be right. It just has to be clear, and you just have to show that you know what you're wanting to say. Does that make sense? Okay. Gone the wrong way. Okay. So I promised you guys that we were going to be conductors today. So make sure your mics are off because we're going to be singing. Or you can turn it on if you're a really great singer. Do that, right? So sing. The first thing we're going to do is to sing. And we have to sing without looking at the music. This is really important. If we look at the music, if I were to look at the music of Till Eulenspiegel, I would sing it like this. Da 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 da. That's pretty much how it would sound. This is how a lot of my students sound when they sing it for the first time. When we take the music away, we're able to attach to what the feeling is, what the recordings we've listened to. And so we're singing the recording. So I would also encourage you, when you're playing your recordings in the background, sing along to them. It doesn't have to be great. Just helps you to get into the character. So if I'm singing Till Eulenspiegel and I'm imagining I'm in the orchestra, bum 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 beedum, bum 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 beedum, bum 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 beam bum 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 bum. There you go. That's my Till Eulenspiegel. And totally devoid of me having to play the horn, right? It's great. So I'm making sure that I'm maxing out, and we go back to the three pillars, right? technical, musical, mental, or physical, musical, mental. I'm maxing out my musical image by taking the instrument away. And this is what we want to do. Most of us create our musical image while we're holding the horn, violin, clarinet, whatever that is. So we are limited by our technique at that particular point, or how well we can get around that excerpt. Take the instrument away, there's no limitation, right? Bum, bum, bum. I sound amazing in my mind. Strauss 1. And I have no limitation to my musical opinion. I just find out how clear that opinion is. So let's stop for a second. Everyone turn their camera on, if you can. And you have to give the most operatic version of your excerpt or piece in 15 seconds. Rupal, you get to do this too. Very important. And what's important is that you have to use your hands and your arms and all of the expression that you can as an opera singer. Okay. Wolfgang, it looks amazing. Fantastic. This is awesome. Really, really good. This is by far the best session we've ever had, because it looks amazing in my screen at the moment. Super cool. All right, great. So put in the chat what you feel. How did that make you feel in terms of the connection that you had to your piece? Did it change anything? Well, musical, without reservation, fantastic, man. Yeah. Freed up, freedom of expression, confident, awesome. No mistakes, very good. Yeah, terrific. Made Schoenberg make more sense. Yeah, good. Phrasing was better. Energized, awesome. This is really, really great. Okay, fantastic. So this is the image that we want to make sure that we apply when we pick up the instrument, right? So now we're starting to see, if I can't play, like for example, if I'm able to play, if I'm able to sing, I don't know, let's say opening a Marriage of Figaro on the violin. Is that violin or cello? No, it's violin, right? Violin? Not sure. Both, yeah. So I can sing that, and I know exactly how it goes, and it makes me feel incredibly joyful every time I hear that overture. It's like, and I've played it more than I can count. It's so exciting. It's the most exciting beginning of a piece for me ever, and the most exciting start of an opera. Unfortunately, I can't play the violin, so no matter how well I can sing it, it's not going to translate, unfortunately for me. So what I have to do is I'd have to get my violin playing up. So this if we've got a really super clear image and our technique is good enough for that image, it's going to sound great. When we apply this image to the instrument, if we struggle, then it's going to help us identify what areas we need to continue to develop on our instrument. All right, back to screen sharing briefly. So now is my favorite bit. We get to conduct. So you've got to sing in your head. You don't get to put out any words. You can grunt occasionally, because that's what conductors do, apparently. But you get to conduct your piece to the screen in the most expressive way that you possibly can. Okay. And go. Awesome. You guys all should have conducting jobs. Amazing. Really fantastic. Okay, that's great. Really, really good. So what you probably felt was similar to the singing. So now you can put both of these together. You can sing and conduct, but this is definitely something that you want to be spending time to do. And what you'll find is that if you can't sing it clearly, or if you can't conduct it clearly, the image isn't clear enough. But we need to do this. This is a really, really important step for us to make sure that we're utilizing in our preparation of pieces and excerpts. And it has nothing to do with the instrument. And we want it to have nothing to do with the instrument. We want to create the most pure musical image that we can before we bring that image to the instrument. Does that make sense? Awesome. Great. Okay, so then what we want to do is the same thing. We sort of touched on this yesterday, but more from a technical standpoint. Now we're doing it from the musical side. So we want to focus, and you can do air bowing if you like, or you can do on an open string, doesn't really matter. But as wind players, we can do this either across the flute or into the mouthpiece, the clarinet, or in the back of the mouthpiece, or into a straw. But you want to blow that image that you have in your head, or bow it, as clearly as you can. So, and as musical as you can with the same image. Not thinking about playing the instrument, but expressing that musical picture. Your turn. Great. Fantastic. So why do we do this? This is now helping to build this connection between our musical image, our pure musical image, and what we actually physically need to do to transfer it to the instrument. But we're taking out this important element of needing to make sure that we get the notes and make a sound. We're still locked into this musical image, the purest possible one that we can, and we're gradually adding the physical side. Next step. So now we take your instrument. This works for strings, clarinets, flutes, any brass. And we are going to do it two ways. You can do it two ways. One is you can do it as blowing. For violin, what I would suggest is without the bow, just with the fingers, and you can air bow it. But we're focusing on the fingering part of this. And what I would do is I would sing and finger as I go. So bum 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 bum. So that I'm learning to coordinate, we're again making more physical connection, coordinate this image I have in my head to what I'm doing on the instrument. So grab your instrument if you've got one there. Or if you don't, you can just, imagine the fingerings. You can use your fingers, that's totally fine too. So sing or blow, but don't blow it into the instrument necessarily, or that can be the next step, is that you blow it into the instrument. But to begin with, sing and finger the notes as you sing. Good. And then without making sound, blow it into the instrument, same with the fingering. Really good. Okay, and then the last step is to then go the whole hog. Put it into the instrument, same image, connecting to the image, let it go, and trust what you're doing. Give it a shot of playing into your instrument. Yeah, Matt, you can use a breathing bag, absolutely, totally fine. You can blow into the instrument, you can blow through a straw at the same time. It's just trying to make this connection of the image you have in your brain to the physical side of what we're doing. Okay, so guess what? Your assignment for today is to practice your piece or excerpt using the Maestro and the singer method, what we've just done. Sing, conduct, blow, finger on the instrument, and play. You can add in steps if you want to. That's no problem. If you can think of other steps that you might want to, that will help with this, go for it. You can play it on just one single note. You can play it without articulation. We can add in the tools that we had in the previous days. So go back and have a look at the different tools that we've talked about in the previous 2 days and add that to this process as well. But remembering that we need to stay focused on what the musical picture, the musical image, the character that we want to put out, that's our focus, and we're making that connection on the physical side. It would be great to see your process with this on the Facebook page, I Am Community, if you want to put up a video. And I really hope that you're recording each day of this process, because you're going to see how much development you made over 5 days. It's going to be really awesome. So even if it's just for yourself. So I encourage you to record, your own sessions. Keep a little collection of those recordings and put it together. So you're going to actually be able to see how much development you've made. All right. Where are we? Blowing using the back of the mouthpiece, yeah.
There were a couple questions on email. Sorry, Andrew. Yeah, one was just where to upload the videos. So there'll be a post on the I Am Community page, and we'll send that out in the recap, so you guys have that. And then about the practice plan, Andrew, I know you were suggesting yesterday, so we're actually adding some things to it and enhancing it a little bit. So sorry for the delay, but we will send a link on how you can access that shortly. So we're updating it with some of the music, and Andrew surprised us with that comment, so it's coming.
Yeah, sorry, I tend to do that. Yeah, and if you'd like to talk, to me and to Rupal more about our summer program, if you've got questions about the summer program, if you're interested in being involved, we'd love to chat with you about that. We have Dennis Buryakov, flute, Boris Alekbedian, clarinet, Bob Domain, cello, Whitney Crockett, bassoon, David Rahano, trombone, and me on the horn. And we talk a lot of stuff about practice planning, goal setting, audition preparation, mindset, mental training, and also the financial side and the organizational side and marketing. If you're looking at, if you're, for example, if you're teaching or you're building a teaching studio, Rupal has some fantastic sessions on how to enhance your teaching studio, how to up prices, how to make sure that you're marketing for the right people, how to create a really innovative program for your students. All of these things are part of the program, and as well as 70 our library of 70 videos for the modules that we have in the program, as well as a massive resource library and a 200 plus page workbook that's going to print at the moment. That's pretty awesome. So we'd be excited to chat with anyone who wants to jump on a call and just ask some questions. Also, if you've got a question about these sessions, happy to chat about that as well. So I now need to disappear and go and play some Fidelio. So thank you, everybody. Look forward to seeing those videos. Great job today. Fantastic singing and conducting. Awesome. And we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're talking about some ideas about awareness, creating awareness, mindset, and mental training. We're going to do some work on that in relation to your piece. Everyone, put your hand up if you feel as though you've made improvements since Monday. Good. Awesome. Me too, actually. This is really good for me to do because it reminds me of what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's great. All right. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.